Hello everybody, Keith here again. A couple of Oncidium types to be repotted. This one is my no ID xVuylstekeara, which I bought at RHS Car Gardens in Yorkshire a few weeks ago, a couple of months ago now I guess. It's flowered, but this is the last flower of the second spike. We've got some nice bulbs. There's no sign of any new growths yet, but there's quite a lot of root activity that's not going down towards the soil. It's too far forward in the pot. You know how well you can see that the plant doesn't even start until there. So it can come quite a long way back. It's in quite good condition. The pseudo bulbs are quite plump. There's no real sign of major wrinkling. So it wants doing. The real driver for that is that it's in that peaty compost, which I find is tricky to deal with. I like my plants to go wet dry, or at least wet damp, on a roughly 7 to 10 day cycle, give or take. And as such, I can't dunk it or simply pour water through it as you would if it was bark. You have to almost play tunes with it. Just pour a little bit on, just kind of try and damp it a bit, and hope that goes all the way down to the bottom of the pot. But if you're not careful, if you do overdo it, you're just going to rot all the roots off anyway. So that needs doing. Now, this one is Oncidium sotoanum. I only bought this a few days ago. I would normally not even contemplate repotting one of these. Not in this state. It's a lovely plant. You've got beautiful big solid mature pseudo bulbs. You've got 3 strong new growths coming on it. It doesn't really want a lot of looking at. But unfortunately, when I got it, it had been allowed to get very dry, and it had been jostled, and the peaty stuff, it had either come out the pot and been stuffed back in again, or it had simply just got crushed, but it's loose in the pot. You know, it's hopeless. It wobbles about, something dreadful, and I'm concerned that if I don't do something with it fairly soon, one of these days it's just going to fall out of the pot, and whether it's in flower or it isn't, it'll just fall over, and who knows what might happen. So I'm going to do this, I think, in 2 stages. I'm going to start off by having a look what's inside the pots. I'll then pause the video, clean it up. We've all seen orchids being cleaned up any number of times. It's going to have to be done, this one with a bit less care, because if that flower falls off, well, it's probably on its way soon anyway. This one, there's unopened branches on the original spikes, but some of these flowers are starting to fail, possibly because it got too dry. I've got 2 spikes where none of the flowers are open, so I'm hoping if I really watch what I'm doing, I shall still have some flowers at the end of it. But if I don't, at least I shall know that the plant itself is going to be in a better state afterwards. So let's start off with the xVuylstekeara. Move that out of the way. Don't know anything whatever about it, other than that was the label that came with it, and at the bottom you can see it says under that EU, black and white EU flag of XVuylstekeara and the plant passport and everything, and that M for Mayslauer, a Dutch nursery no doubt. That's all you've got, and on the other side of course it just says Cambria, which is not an awful lot of use to anybody who's interested in orchids as such. Now then, we've got quite a lot of roots with tips, so that's good news. Very clearly that's good news. I'll take these stakes out at least, and got the two stakes. That'll have to come off, I think. That spike will have to I'll have to do its own thing for at least a little while. So let's at least start by knocking a bit out of this. As I say, I'm not going to try and show you all of this. We've got a lot of roots and they're branching, and the great majority I've seen so far are good. Now this stuff is quite damp at the bottom. It's typical of this kind of thing when you're talking about, I thought I'd seen a third stake somewhere. When you're using moss or anything like it that's very, very water retentive, it's alright for a while, but then it seems to lose the ability to wick, and you can end up with parts of your compost completely dry and other parts absolutely wringing wet. And that's another reason why I'm not keen on these. I use very little moss, use it where I can't do much else. I've got some moss in my Masdevallia pots. I've got some moss in my Psychopsis pot, because that is the plants that need to retain moisture. But even with the Psychopsis, introducing that moss, and I've cut back the amount of moss from what I originally used, and it's still, as soon as it cools down, it's excessive. As soon as it all cools down, the uptake of moisture is greatly reduced. Drat. Didn't do that root any good. Oh, and lo and behold, we've got a moss plug in the bottom. No great surprise, except the roots coming out of it don't seem to be too bad. So this would appear to be an orchid that likes to be kept on the damp side. So I'm going to need to use a finer bark than I might do for some of the others. So going by this, I don't know what the parentage of a XVuylstekeara might be, but I suspect it's got something, either Miltoniopsis or something of the kind in here that must like moisture. Because this is not really what I was expecting at all. Unfortunately, I am damaging roots as I'm trying to untangle them. Try and do it with two hands. I'm sorry that you can't see this, but it'll be quicker if I do it by hand rather than try and hold it up and do it one-handedly. There we go. That's those roots that were down at the bottom of the pot, and we're going round and round and round. So some of that's gone, which is not necessarily a problem. As I say, we've got a lot of roots with green tips, we've got branches, so I think for the most part we've got something that has got the makings of a decent plant. I need to get some of these sheaves and things off to give the roots a way out. That does seem to be a problem with a lot of Oncidium types. These remains of the old bracts down at the bottom don't split as they should, and the roots get pushed upwards and not down. But yeah, we've got some good solid roots. You could do with a little bit more rinsing under the tap, which that'll do before I repot it, but that's the xVuylstekeara done. And I'm quite pleased with the way that's turned out. That's looking quite good. I suppose I should have expected it, just given the fact that the pseudo bulbs were looking so good. And for the same reason, I'm hoping that this one is going to have decent roots. I've not tried to look at it yet. These roots don't look as good, but we'll just have to see. At least we have got some new pseudo bulbs. This is quite odd. This is a mixture of that peat stuff and looks like bark chips or something along those lines, which is an unusual combination and quite different to the other one. But that there undoubtedly is going to turn out to be a moss plug. I can tell that just from the feel of it. And again, I'm going to have to try and drop the camera a bit, see if that gets it so we can see what I'm doing down here. Yeah, it's difficult to say what sort of state the roots are in as they're in this plug. They certainly feel quite tough, so again it may well be that this is not a plant that likes to be too dry. I mean, you can see why when they get so tangled and tied up in it. There's a seedling pseudo bulb that's just in there, another one there. That explains it. I mean, they've just come away naturally. Be a little bit careful, that very small one at the back will come off as well, which I'm going to try and avoid if I can. But yes, I've got the same problem with this one that I had with the other one, that I'm going to have to rinse it under the tap to get the majority of this, the remains, out. I found that these roots on most of the orchids, when they start to grip things, it's a bit like, because they're epiphytes, they've got to grip the bark that they're on clearly. But it's, if you drench it in enough water, it does sort of weaken it, and you can get in there and do quite a lot anyway. So yeah, I've lost some roots, no great surprise. There seem to be quite a lot of roots on here, and just tugging at them they don't feel as if they're going to drop to pieces. So anyway, that's the immediate task. That's done. That's got rid of the great majority of that peaty stuff. I'm going to go and give it a rinse and then come back and we'll have a look at potting them up. See you soon. Okay, back again. Firstly with the xVuylstekeara. Let's take that off. It's wandering about all over the shop. Doesn't look very good. We've got a lot of roots which are shorter and newer than these, so I'm going to take off these very long ones because I think otherwise it's going to be quite awkward to pot up. I don't generally like doing that, but with a branching rootstock I don't think it's as much the kiss of death as it can be sometimes. As I say, it's not something I like to do, but try and give it as little disturbance as I can get away with it. But the nice thing is I've spotted some very tiny nubbins off the newer growths, so I think we're going to be alright now. I've got that down into the pot. Yeah, that'll be absolutely fine with all that. I'm pretty sure I'm going to use a fairly fine bark with this one. It's one of my commercial type mixes. I don't do my own, but the stuff I've bought through the East Midlands Orchid Society is, I think, a bit too coarse for an Oncidium type. I don't think it would retain enough moisture. I think with this one in particular, because it obviously liked being on the damp side, because it's done so well and the roots were not in any kind of a disarray. This can go in here with this smallish bark, and I think, I hope, that's all you can ever do, just hope that it's all reasonably smooth. I think it will be. I'm going to stake it because I think if I want the roots to go down, it needs to be reasonably snug. So just brace it with those, I think, the two or the three that it had when it came to me. But it doesn't appear to be too great a climber, so all we can really do is get it reasonably well packed, and that is going to be the xVuylstekeara done. So just basically potted it up, and I think that'll be okay at that. It's not too big a climber, which a lot of Oncidiums can be, so don't have to worry about burying bulbs under the surface. Right, now then, the sotoanum. The roots are shorter, but once I rinsed them, a lot of the brown came off and they don't look too bad. Yes, we've got some that have gone, but again, not huge numbers. The roots don't go down as far, but whatever. I've tried to get rid of the old bracts. I'll take that off as well. That's not going to help anything. But that's looking good. We've got growing this way, so if I get it over to one side, we should be alright for going back into this pot. So same again, fine roots, fine bark, seems to be a reasonable sort of a mantra. I want that as far away as I can get it. Some people soak the bark before they start. I generally don't bother. I know why people do it. It's so the roots aren't suddenly in a dry environment, but I'm not going to leave them like that anyway. First thing I want to do basically is water it in. So I think that can help settle the bark. At the moment, what I'm trying to do is make sure the bark is not too high up on the new growths. They're going to get wet and suffer because of that. So I want it secure. I want the whole thing tight in the pot so it can't wobble around too much, which it is trying to do at the moment, inevitably, because it's freshly in the pot. And with these thin-walled pots that you tend to get from the nurseries, it's difficult to really get the bark really tightly done into the pot, because the pot gives too much. But we have got some stakes, and if I look where it's trying to move, I can put something in there which will help if I tie it up. What's the other side we can do? Put it put it there. There we are. That seems to have it reasonably tight, so that then is the sotoanum. Much more stable in the pot. Now in bark instead of the peaty stuff. All we can do with any of these is just see how we get on with it. So that's that one. I haven't, to the best of my knowledge, I haven't knocked that around too much. This spike's not looking fabulous, but never mind, that we're already open. But we've got 3 more. We've got 3 untouched. I thought there were 2, but there's actually 3. So that's the sotoanum. That is the xVuylstekeara, which is even taller. You can see all the clutter in my conservatory. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed that. It was something that needed doing, particularly the sotoanum. Something I was a little bit nervous about because of the flowers, but I think I've got away with that tolerably well. I've got some more to do now. I've just realised, unfortunately, that I've left some of my plants too long. I've got 2 or 3 that have been in their pots more than 2 years. 4, I think, actually, trying to count them up. So I need to do something about that. One of them might be Cathatanti, so that's going to have to be a video on all on its own, I suspect. But anyway, be that as it may, we'll just have to keep our fingers crossed with at least one of those, because although it's looking tolerable, it's not looking as good as it has done in the past. So anyway, that's enough of me rambling. Thank you for watching. Hope you found that interesting. I look forward to seeing you soon. Bye for now.